I want to welcome you all. It's great to have you with us, especially since there are always so many choices, and we're very happy to have you here for our March Sustainability Spotlight Program. Sustainable Tucson is a nonprofit grassroots organization that builds regional resilience and sustainability through community engagement, awareness raising, and advocacy. The mission of Sustainable Tucson is to build an equitable and resilient community that will thrive long into the future in harmony with our natural desert environment. I'm Paula Schlussberg. I'm a member of the Sustainable Tucson board. I want to let you know that we're going to be recording, and then probably by the end of the week, it will go up on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to show your sunny face, you can turn off the camera, but it's always nice to see folks who are here. If you are not a speaker or asking a question, if you would please mute so we don't have background noises. We'll do announcements at the end. So stick around for all our special announcements from everyone, or you can put announcements in the chat. Also put any questions once we get started for the speakers. You can put them in the chat and we'll keep an eye on it. If you are here but did not get the announcement of this meeting from our newsletter, but would like to get the newsletter, please email me, Paula@sustainabletucson.org, and we'll be glad to add you to the list. Okay, I think that's all the announcements. Now I'm going to turn it over to Stuart Moody, a fellow board member, who will be introducing our speakers for the evening.
Thank you, Paula. We are all aware of increasingly high temperatures in Tucson and the prospect of extended heat over the lengthening summer season. While conservation, clean energy sources, and carbon capture projects such as reforestation and regenerative agriculture are all vital, we do need to prepare ourselves for more heat before global cooling begins. In 2020, I composed a statement about this of some of the facts I gathered at this point. It's rather striking. 2014 to 2016 were the 3 hottest years globally since record keeping began. In Tucson, 2017 was our hottest year yet. Then the Daily Star wrote, in the first month of 2018, temperatures again broke records. January was Tucson's hottest, with 20 days of temperature 75 degrees or more. Then, globally, July 2019 was the hottest month ever recorded. NOAA reported the record warmth also shrank Arctic and Antarctic sea ice to historic lows. If we continue with business as usual, by mid-century in the US, the average number of days per year with a heat index above 100 degrees Fahrenheit will more than double. The number above 105 degrees Fahrenheit will quadruple. And we just found out recently that the last 10 years have been the hottest years on record. So we really are in a tight situation. And so it's so wonderful to know that there are people who are devoting some or all of their time to dealing with this issue and making life more livable, our whole community more resilient to heat, and ultimately reducing the emissions that are creating this whole predicament. Today we have 3, possibly 4 of those folks who will share their particular perspectives on dealing with extreme heat. We'll start with Mariko Tippett, who is the board chair of Red Cross in Southern Arizona. We will follow with Karina Martinez Molina, who is working in the city manager's office on heat issues. And then Joe Barrios, who works with TEP and is very alert and got his hands on the information about what's being done, not only to go to a greener, cleaner energy, but also just what are they doing to prevent a power outage, which would be calamitous during a heat wave. Jackie Day may be able to make it this evening, in which case she will tell us about their project of neighborhood awareness raising. So let's start with Mariko. Mariko had about, if I understand, or if I recall correctly, had about 20 years in the Air Force. And you can stop me if I get off a track here. If I recall correctly, pilot, became a trainer of pilots, and then decided that was good, and now is working in Tucson with his own private consultancy business. And it's all about bringing the human qualities of love, compassion, accountability, responsibility, and leadership together to help organizations achieve their full potential for the benefit of the community. So we are super happy to hear you, Mariko. I told them all they'd have about 10 minutes to present their pieces before we go into a panel discussion.
Okay.
So I will put my hand up when we reach 1 minute before the 10 minutes. And if we blur over a little bit into 12, well, I don't think anyone will object. So
Okay.
let's go.
Well, thank you everyone for having me. My name is Mariko Tippett, and I'm the current board chair for Southern Arizona chapter of the American Red Cross. I'm also a part of the National Philanthropic Board for the American Red Cross. And today we're going to be talking about a century of resilience and how we are trying to mobilize the community. So why now? As you've all heard, we have an exponential increase in billion-dollar disasters. If you can look here in 2023, we had 27, almost $28 billion disasters as opposed to 4 in the 1980s. And this is putting a strain on the organization as a whole. You can see in 2024, the number of disasters that we have had are numerous and continuous. 24 separate billion-dollar weather and climate disasters that impacted the United States through October 2024. This is our Red Cross Respond report, and it is just showing, our DAT calls. So those are disaster action calls and responses by county. In Arizona, you can see Maricopa County. We had 1,287 calls and 859 responses. For Pima County, we had 493 calls and 302 responses, and that goes all the way down for each county. So the Red Cross no longer operates in the world of blue sky, which is no disasters, and gray sky is when we are responding to a disaster. With the impacts of climate crisis, we now operate in a world of continuous response, and we must adapt as an organization to the reality of the continuous nature that we are seeing. All right. The continuous response period that we're operating under is challenging to our traditional response model. Our mission to always be ready, we must mobilize communities to build resilience in our region. So what is the number one key to disaster and survival? Neighbors helping neighbors. When we think about what we have seen in the Japan earthquake, the tsunamis in India, and the hurricanes from Katrina in 2005, it was shown that the biggest factor for resilience in any community is the ability for neighbors to know each other and to help out with one another. We want to work through a community rather than at a community to build resilience. And we have to keep in mind that resilience is not done in isolation. It takes all of us pitching in. And we need resources, we need outreach through leadership, we need things that are not necessarily program driven. And there are 5 determinants of this resilience. It is prevent physical and psychological health, social and economic equity and well-being, effective risk communication, and integration of governmental and non-governmental organizations that all bring together this social cohesion. These are just a little bit more about what each one of these 5 factors are. Healthy communities are better prepared for disasters. They have access to healthcare and they're able to manage chronic conditions such as injuries and mental health. The social and economic equity and well-being ensures that everyone has the resources to prepare for and recover from disasters. One of the things that we do at the American Red Cross is we look for and search for vulnerable populations. That means those populations that may not have the resources and the capabilities to effectively prepare and recover from a disaster when it happens. And then timely communication keeps everyone informed. So I live in Vail, and Vail is a community designated area, census designated area. So when something happens, we don't have a city that is able to inform all of the neighbors and all of the people as to what's going on. We can try and use some forms of social media, but there have been times when both Cox cable internet has been out as well as Verizon cell phone access. So at best, some people will get information, some people may not. And we've had 2 serious incidences in the last year and a half, 18 months. One was a water incident where a water line broke and it needed to be contained. And some people found out, some people did not find out. And then we had a hazardous waste spill on I-10 that closed the highway, shut down our schools, etc. So this is something, in what most would consider an affluent area, and we don't have the basic communication tools that we need to keep everyone informed and ready to act. And this is where the integration of organizations comes in. The collaboration amongst nonprofit, government, business, and local groups to ensure faster and more efficient aid, do some pre-crisis planning, and just create the joint efforts to maximize resources and fill the gaps. Again, using Vail as an example, we have a large elderly community that's here. So making sure that if something were to happen, we're checking on them to make sure they are able to get their medications, they're able to get food resources and things of that nature. And social cohesion is just a strong community bonding together, sharing our resources, supporting the vulnerable groups, and using teamwork to transform individual resilience. And there is the social cohesion. This is just saying, the lower income, vulnerable populations suffer disproportionately from major disasters. 6 in 10 Americans have a chronic disease. And looking at housing of 7.3 million, there's a gap in affordable housing in the US. This is our road to resilience. It looks complicated, but as you move through the map, you get to a community with the resilient mindset that says, I have the skills I can use in a disaster to help others. If something unpredictable were to happen, I can count on my community. And just having the knowledge that my community is not immune to disasters. One of the things that we are able to do in the American Red Cross is give an organization what's called a Ready rating. This is a free online tool that shows how prepared your organization is to meet the needs of an emergency. And we will measure what your organization's current preparedness level is, and then help your organization to create or improve its emergency action plan. So with the Ready rating assessments, there are two choices based on your needs. The Ready Go is short, it's 25 questions, and the Ready Advanced is more comprehensive, and it's a 60 question assessment. These are just some of the things from annual extreme heat strategic actions that we're trying to initiate and support. I won't go through all of them in the interest of time, but the American Red Cross is taking a proactive stance on extreme heat and trying to work with other organizations to create solutions. That's all I have. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mariko, very much.
I guess I would like a quick question. Do you offer training for an organization to better prepare itself to fulfill one of those roles in the last slide there?
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll have lots of questions at the end too. So I noticed that Jackie has joined us. And Jackie, I'm suggesting that you come in after, well, let's see. Yes, we'll have Karina, then Jackie, and then Joe. So Karina Martinez Molina is a graduate student, if I recall correctly, at the University of Arizona with high aspirations. But, it's just, it's not enough just to be in graduate school. She decided it'd be fun to work for the city. And so she is working in the office of the city manager, right-hand person to Fatima Luna, who's here tonight. And her effort is to be an effective community outreach coordinator. And judging by the heat summit that we had, on the second annual heat summit on February 1st, she's done a lot of good work to get us people connected and informed and motivated. So Karina, we look forward to your presentation now and what you've been up to.
Trying to share my screen a little quick.
I want to please speak loudly.
I'm not hearing right now. Want to test your mic?
We do see your screen, Karina, but we don't hear your voice.
Yeah. You know what we might do? If you'd like to sort of play with your tech, we could let Jackie, would that be good? Let Jackie do her introduction? Super. Yeah, just play around. If we hear your voice pop in suddenly, that means it's working.
As a last-ditch effort, she could call in and just use her screen.
Thank you. Good remembering. Okay, so let's see, where's Jackie? So briefly to introduce Jackie, started her career of service in the Peace Corps many, many years ago, and has been really a community builder and an educator for a long, long time. I was co-founder of the Milagro co-housing residential area, sort of northwest, I guess you would call it, out past Silver Bell a little bit. And they've done a lot of good things there in terms of community living and sustainability. And Jackie was one of the early folks trained through Physicians for Social Responsibility to go out and give workshops in the neighborhoods. And in fact, this meeting tonight is really an outgrowth of the work done by Jackie and her colleagues. So thank you, Jackie, so much for all of that.
Well, I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of a congestion here, so I'm going to do the best I can. I don't have any slides or anything. I'm just going to speak as to what Physicians for Social Responsibility has developed a really interesting interactive program that we present in communities. We hoped for at least like 20 to 25 participants in a community. When we had it at our community, I live in Milagro co-housing community. We've actually had it a couple of times because we had one of the original ones, and then like 5 or 6 years later, we did another more just to catch up people who had moved into the community since we originally presented it. What came out of that workshop was we decided to create a committee, resiliency committee, that would look into what all our community, we have 28 homes in our community. So we looked into what it would take if the power was off for, say, a week or maybe even longer. It was basically, that's what the premise is of these workshops is, not just heat, but if there's no power, it's more extreme. So, we did an assessment of what our community had in terms of like stored water. We have some cisterns. We estimated how many gallons of water. We have one swimming pool, a community pool that had, X number of gallons of water. The main thing, of course, was the fear that and I think that's going to be addressed later, if there's no power, we might not be able to have water pumped up to our community. It's all uphill. So our first assessment, I think, was how much water we had on our land. And of course, this community assessment was how much we had in the way of shade or shared resources. We have 3 homes with basements, so they're considerably cooler in the basement, and they were willing to share that space with the community if necessary. We looked at we have a community center, we call it a common house, where we could gather if we had enough solar power to power fans, maybe a refrigerator. And so I think in Stuart's description, we were given the credit for having solar backup power, but we do not have that yet. It was considerably expensive, and our community could not afford the batteries to store power that we would generate with our solar panels, which we do have a considerable number throughout the community and on our common house, but we had no way of storing it. We have had one family since move in who has also a basement, and they have the solar battery backup in their home. We recently had a home willed to the community, and we did a survey of the things that were the most important that we would want to spend our money on. And I was quite happy to see that the top vote getter was battery packs to store our solar off of our common house. So we are really looking forward to probably getting that. I guess the main thing is looking at who is vulnerable in our community, who is going to be checking on those people who may be elderly, making sure there was some way to keep medications cool. All these aspects we kind of brought together and created a book like this that we have given to each home, and it lists what they personally need to do, who they need to identify in their family as vulnerable, what they can share, what resources they have on hand, such as at least 2 gallons of water per day for each individual. Ways to we do have some solar cookers, for instance, if the refrigerators were down and we're losing food, we could cook on our solar cookers. So that's something to keep in mind for other communities. We do go into other communities and try and share our wisdom and what we've gathered. We're a long way from being completely self-sufficient. You always worry about, other people who don't have what you have assessed, and how to deal with that. But what PSR does is go into communities and present our interactive workshop and hope that each community will come up with a plan, not exactly identical to what we've done, but something that will keep their community resilient in the face of extreme weather conditions. I don't know if I've covered everything that you wanted or not.
That's great, Jackie. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Just to emphasize what Jackie is talking about is the practicality of making ourselves ready in the case of some disaster that strikes a large part of the neighborhood or the city even. And so Milagro is a small community, one example, and then the workshops that Jackie and her colleagues, such as Margot Newhouse, present is a way of getting people oriented and excited to do something like that. I know that we've got one, Catherine is here, whose community had Jackie and or Margot come and present to them. And speaking of solar ovens, Susan Wenberg probably would like to ask you a few questions about that. But first, let's go now to Karina. Do you think you might be ready? Hooray. Okay. And thank you both, Mariko and Jackie, for being so timely. And let's do the same so Joe also gets his time in the sunlight. Okay. Oh, still can't hear. Want to speak again? Not hearing. Are you wearing a headset or no? No headset. Ah. You want to do the phone? Okay. For all of you Zoom experts, this is something we want to remember. You can call on your phone.
And when you call in, you may need to turn off the speakers of your computer to avoid feedback.
While we wait, we're practicing the wonderful art of equanimity, being with what is.
Can I take a minute while we're waiting to
Yes, please,
give a plug for Milagro?
please.
Just recently, PBS has done a special that's going to be aired on Arizona Illustrated this Sunday evening at 6:30 on PBS, and just going to talk about Milagro. Plug.
Nice.
Thank you.
That must be very fulfilling to get that recognition.
Yes, indeed.
Hmm. So let's see, we're waiting for Karina. Karina, do you think we should let Joe speak and while you get that organized? Does that mean yes? Okay. Joe, I know you're ready at a moment's glance, so just a brief introduction. Joe Barrios is the Senior Media Relations and Regulatory Communications Specialist for TEP. He's been with that agency more than 15 years now. He also is the co-chair of the Public Relations Society of America in the Southern Arizona chapter. So he's got a lot of background and a lot of respect in the field. Prior to joining TEP, he worked as a newspaper reporter in Tucson, also San Antonio, Texas. He wrote about local communities, crime, courts, real estate. This all after getting his bachelor's degree in journalism from UA, where he is taught as an adjunct instructor. So, Joe, we are now ready to hear what you want to share, and you can be our instructor for the next 9 or 10 minutes or so.
Me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good, great. Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for offering to give us some time to talk about an obviously very important topic. And Stuart, thank you for the introduction. So I don't have a slide deck or a very formal presentation. But what I thought I would do was just run through some of the most common types of questions that we get, particularly before summer begins. Part of my job involves answering questions from the media, and I have been doing this a little while, and so many of the questions are very similar. So I'll quickly run through those, and then I'm happy to answer questions either during the meeting or even offline. So just to start a tiny bit about our service territory, we provide service here in the metropolitan area, Marana, Vail, Sahuarita. We also provide service to Fort Huachuca. Our service territory, it's about 1,100 square miles. We have about 450,000 customers throughout the area, and that's mostly residential, but that also includes small business, our total customer count. And we have compared to, if you were to compare TEP to every other utility in the country, we are fortunate in that we have very good reliability. There's a measure, and we have data available on our website. It's called the system average by the total number of customers. And for us, that tallies to it's about how can I say? One way to say it is the typical customer, let's say, is out of service for about an hour every year. Now that number, can go up or down, below 60 minutes, sometimes above that, but that's how it averages out. And obviously some customers, they experience longer outages, which have a greater impact on them. But the heat that we deal with it's always a challenge. But we don't have hurricanes. We don't have those ice storms that you might see in other parts of the country. And so again, I mean, we are fortunate, but we do work very hard to try and keep that number down. And we are asked every year, is there going to be enough power? And so what we do is we take a look at system usage, how much our customers are using. We take a look at weather data, and try and predict at the height of summer, when we think customers are going to be using the highest amount of power during the year. What is that number? And then as part of our planning process, we try to make arrangements so that we can provide even more than that. So there's always a buffer, a reserve margin. So, if there were a problem with the grid, say a generating resource were to go offline, or say there was a wildfire, for example, that required us to de-energize a transmission line that we were using, we still have resources available to sort of fill in fill in those gaps. And we give a presentation to the Corporation Commission every year. I believe we're working on that presentation now, and it will offer those projections before summer begins. And I think this is obviously a very important topic. And as I mentioned, we have about 450,000 customers. And I think the thing, that we always try to keep in mind is that, we're very cognizant of the fact that uh, all of those customers are our customers. And so particularly during the summer, we know they're counting on us. We know that it's hot, and folks are going to be counting on their air conditioning systems. And so we really work hard throughout the year, because we know when summer arrives, that's when we're really going to get put to the test. Our grid is really going to be tested by both high temperatures, high ambient temperatures, but then also greater energy use, which itself causes equipment to heat up. And so, again, it's just something that we're thinking about year round as we inspect our equipment, as we perform maintenance. We do also, at the end of summer, look at areas where we may have had more outages than others, and try and use that to assess, okay, in the coming months, what changes do we need to make so that we have greater flexibility to reroute power, or to make repairs, or replace equipment. So again, so that when summer arrives and things get things get really tough, we're ready for it. So it's again something where we try to focus on year round, and we know it's important work. And I was glad to hear earlier mention of agencies in the community cooperating together, because in those instances when we do have large outages that last longer, we do look to the Red Cross, and we look to other partners in the community to try and coordinate a response to that, so that while we're trying to fix poles and wires, or we're trying to procure additional energy resources, or to make changes to the grid, we are also communicating with our customers, and we're also communicating with Pima County Emergency Management or the Red Cross, trying to tell our customers about cooling centers at the local libraries, so that we're keeping everyone informed as we can, because sometimes if there's a storm or whatever the case might be, we do try to respond as quickly as possible. Despite that, it takes, sometimes it just takes time. So I think that collaboration and communicating, that's really a big part of how we respond to those challenging circumstances. So I mean, that's really what I wanted to offer, and like I said, I'm happy to take questions now or later.
That's great, Joe. Thank you so much for that. Let's find out. Wayne got one question in after Jackie, I think it was. Is there a single question anyone would like to drop in our conversation now? Okay, why don't we keep going? I know they'll be there, and Rosemary, in fact, had a whole list that she might like to ask one or two. Karina, shall we give it a try one more time? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna share again. Okay. Give me 1 second. Share.
You are loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect. Wow. Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you see the presentation? There you go. Yes?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much for the invite, Stuart. Well, my name is Karina Martinez, and I am the Community Relations Coordinator. I work at the City of Tucson with Fatima Luna, and I'm very excited to be here and to be able to discuss what we're doing as a city regarding heat resilience. And switch, there you go. Extreme heat is more than an environmental challenge. It's more like a defining issue that it's that involves public health, equity, and also affects the quality of life. We know that extreme heat does not affect everyone equally. And we also know that low-income communities and also the communities of color are the ones that are more that are disproportionately affected. And this is because the ability to be able to stay cool depends on access to AC, access to tree coverage, mobility, and also the dwelling conditions. And that's why, as a city, we are trying to make sure that we have equity at the core of all of our heat resilience efforts, and to make sure that all of our community members, especially the most vulnerable ones, have all the resources that they need to be able to stay safe during the summer months. And last year, the city of Tucson developed a heat action roadmap. And the heat action roadmap is the map basically that guides all the actions that we take as a city. And the roadmap has three main goals and also 71 actions, I believe. And it basically, I don't want to go into too much detail, but we cover we protect the person, the home in and out, and also the neighborhoods. It protects at the neighborhood level. I know we have very short time. So, well, the roadmap ensures that every initiative from emergency relief to long-term climate adaptation moves Tucson towards a cooler and also more resilient future. And across our city departments, we're embedding heat resilience into everyday operations. So from risk and safety management, make sure that city employees have heat safety training and also the emergency plans, and the business services enforces that heat protection ordinance, improves worker safety, public safety and communications, serves as a critical first responder in heat emergencies. And Housing First outreach teams, they are the ones that are distributing water and also their water resources, and also they're making sure that our unhoused residents have access to the resources that are available in the city. And also our emergency management team and also the climate action team, we all work together on building heat resilience into our city operation and also with our regional partners. So by integrating heat resilience into all of our operations, we are protecting not just our city staff, but also the residents that we serve. And beyond the immediate protections that we have, the city is also investing in long-term cooling solutions. And the city is doing this by the Mayor Romero Tucson Million Trees initiatives and also the Urban Forestry Program. And these two programs are expanding the tree canopy to increase shade. Also, that will help reduce the temperature and also improve the air quality. And we also have the Storm to Shade program, which is transforming the stormwater infrastructure into green spaces that do absorb heat. And also that improves our water management and also help cool our neighborhoods. So these are some of the initiatives that our city are initiatives that that ensure that our city remains livable, not just for today, but also for future generations. And providing immediate relief from extreme heat is just as critical as a long-term adaptation, and that's why the cities also been increasing the cooling infrastructure by in our parks with pools, more splash pads. We're also trying to make sure that our drinking fountains are working. We're adding more water fountains. We increased our cooling centers. A few years ago, we only had one cooling center per ward, and now I think last year we had up to 40. Of course, in partnership with the county and also nonprofits in our community. And additionally, we are exploring, sorry, let me back a little bit. So we're also exploring a battery storage project with Tucson Electric Power and the Pacific Northwest National Lab. And this will help us make Donna Leggings the first resilience hub in the city of Tucson, which will offer cooling, also power and emergency support while increasing our grid reliability. And regarding transportation, well, we know that transportation is key in addressing urban heat because it's not just for mobility, but also for emission reduction. So in Tucson, 43% of heat trapping emissions do come from transportation. And that's why we are investing in multimodal heat resilience infrastructure under a complete streets policy. We're also implementing Prop 411, which is a $740 million investment, with 20% of this going to safety investments, which includes bicycle network improvements, sidewalks, traffic calming features, and also complete streets. We also are decarbonizing public transit with a fleet of 20 electric buses. We are keeping our transit fares free right now per mayor and council direction to ensure accessibility for those most impacted by extreme heat. And we also know that public transport serves as a mobile cooling station. Testing cool pavements to reduce heat absorption on roadways. And also we're enhancing our bus stops with shade, some green infrastructure, and we're also adding some water catchment systems. And these are some of the investments that Tucson is making to make the city safer, cooler, and also more connected while reducing our emissions. And to build heat resilience in our community, well, we know that actually heat resilience begins at the community level, and this is why we're very committed on addressing extreme heat. And we know that the real change actually happens through partnerships and also all the community action. And that's why we are making sure that we work closely with our local organizations to make sure that we can bring cooling solutions to our residents. And there are programs like the Solar Empowerment Program, where we partner with SETI and also Technicians for Sustainability. And what we do is that we install solar panels on low-income households to reduce both the energy costs and also reduce heat vulnerability. We also support CHIRPA, Emergency Home Repair Program, which helps residents improve the safety and the comfort of their homes during the extreme heat events. And we are working on launching the Community Resilient Leadership Academy, where local leaders and residents will gain the skills and the knowledge to build the heat resilience, to be able to prepare for emergencies and also to adapt to our climate change. And the thing is that we cannot do any of this alone. That's why we need the help of our community members. And some of the things that we can do, here's some of the things that people can do to be part of this effort, and is at the home level, make sure that you take the steps to improve energy efficiency. And, we can also add some trees for shade. At our neighborhood level, we can support local resilience projects and also check on our neighbors. This is something that was brought up a lot on our heat summit. Make sure that you check on your neighbors, especially during extreme heat events. And yeah, so I think I don't have more time. So yeah, so as a city of Tucson, we're very committed on this work, but we know that the most meaningful solutions will actually come from us working together with the community and all the members like you. So I'll leave it at there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karina, for that work and for a very clear presentation of that. That leads to a question to see our question and answer period. You said you're collaborating with TEP. Was that on the cooling centers?
For that project,
Yes.
so we are working with TP and Northwest. I always forget one of the words. We're also working with Pacific Northwest National Lab. So we are in the early stages. We're trying to transform donor leggings into a resilience center. So we're working on identifying what are the needs from donor leggings to make it the first resilience hub in the city of Tucson. We're trying to see, we're exploring like what capacity, we're trying to do a battery storage system so that we can actually save some of the energy that the solar panels are producing, to make sure that the center can be used during emergencies.
Joe, do you want to add anything on that?
I myself am not, I haven't worked on that project myself, so I know like just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what it would, it'd be a battery system that under normal conditions, let's say, it would help provide service to customers, throughout the area. I think some of the details are still being worked out in terms of, how big would the system be? What would the footprint be? What type of technology would we use? I think we're still looking into that and sort of doing our homework. But then I think the idea would be that if there were an outage, if there were an issue, the output from the battery could be deployed just there at the center. And so if the city wanted to stand up a cooling center, it would have a reliable on-site source of power for operations there. And honestly, that is about everything I know about it. I'm excited about it. I just don't have the details myself.
Super. Thank you. And Rosemary, I know you've got a question. Can you unmute?
First, I'll say I participate in recreation at the Doneligan Center, and they do have their parking lot. They have 2 sets of solar panels, so they're certainly using solar power. I'm not sure how much of their need it fulfills, but they have great panels, and I enjoy parking under them in the summer. And my grandson is now working for Technicians for Sustainability, and he explained that if most people with solar panels on their roofs are connected to the grid, and if the grid goes down, then they're not able to use the power from their solar panels because it would go in the grid and could go and harm people working on it. But when you have the battery storage, then the rooftop panels, the grid goes down, and then they're disconnected, and then you can continue to use your solar panel and also have the battery backup at night. My daughter has a roof like that in California, and it works great. She doesn't even know when the grid goes down. But my question has been to TEP, since you are producing more and more solar panel for Tucson, because I love to look at that dashboard. If the grid were to go down, is there a way to direct that solar energy to certain vital hospitals and stuff?
Good question. You know, the solar resources we have, they're geographically spread out a little bit. And, you know, one of the things we're asked about is, well, you know, if this generating resource is here, where specifically does the power go? And what I mean by that is, where do the electrons actually, where do they actually go? And, you know, there's really no tracking where they go. There's not really a way to do it. You know, if there were an outage, it would really sort of depend on the circumstances. If say, I don't know, a storm blew through and damaged some equipment, and there was a group of customers in a specific area that we couldn't deliver power to, you know, we might still be able to deliver energy from those solar resources to others, but to other customers, but it really sort of depends on the circumstances of each outage. We do have areas of our service territory that are more isolated than others. So if they're experiencing an outage, in some cases we have to make physical repairs before we can resume providing service to them, which the project at the Donald Liggins Center, it would be unique for us, and we are working to add more energy storage throughout our service territory. But that one would be particularly unique because it could, it would be designed specifically to serve just that site.
Thank you. And a follow-on to that, and then we've got one from Trace or Paula, would be what do you think will be needed to set up sort of microgrids or just solar I'll back up. There's Janice Siegel, who's here tonight, has been working with their neighborhood association. They have a very strong interest in the local school becoming a cooling center by virtue of having solar panels connect to batteries, as Corinne is talking about for Donald Liggins. Is there any thinking at TEP or among your other collaborators about how to help start setting up these little centers like that so that many people would have refuge during heat?
It's certainly something we have heard about, and it's something that some customers are interested in. Again, the project at Donald Liggins would be new and different and unique for us. Just to sort of give everyone an idea of scale, we have, and I apologize, I have not looked at the numbers in a little bit, but we have, I think, something on the order of more than let's just say more than 2,000 megawatts of generating capacity. Currently, we have, I think we are at about 80 megawatts of energy storage. So, our focus has been simply adding energy storage resources. So expanding the systems that serve all of our customers. That's sort of been our area of focus, and we have something like 500 or 600 megawatts of energy storage projects that are either under construction or they will start construction soon. So we are working to add those storage resources. The conversation regarding microgrids and projects like that are centered in specific areas, maybe tied to specific neighborhoods. I think that's ongoing because there are always questions about how big are those systems, how are they charged, how are they, where does the energy come from, and then of course how do you allocate the costs that are involved. We have something on the order of 50,000 residential customers with their own rooftop systems, and only about 1,000 of them have their own storage systems. And I think part of that, at least part of that, is simply cost. There's interest, and as the technology becomes, adopted more, it'll become less expensive. It's just we're not quite there yet. So I think there's a lot of discussion to be had.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Trace or Paula?
Yeah, I've got a question, Joe, a question on this statement. The statement is, I think I know two things for certain. One is that TEP is undoubtedly prepared for anything you've ever experienced. And the other is that I don't believe you've ever encountered all possible climate black swans descending at the same time. At the same time, we have aging equipment and bad luck that isolates some major external power supply like Springerville. The other thing I think I know for certain is that Joe Salkowski has twice refused to let me see you guys' Black Start plan. So I have no idea what you're actually preparing for. So my question is, can you help me understand what you're actually prepared for?
A good question, also a challenging one, because it's sort of like asking, are you ready for anything? And
just the worst case we might expect.
The best I can say is we do the best we can. Could we anticipate and document every conceivable permutation of outage or disaster that could occur? That would be challenging. Do we prepare for those? Certainly, we do. Tabletop exercises. Like I said, we inspect our equipment. We consider what could happen if multiple critical resources were to go offline. How would we respond to them? We are certainly aware that there could be circumstances we've not faced before. So, worst case scenario, I'm sure if you were to talk to some of our engineers and our folks in the system control office that, are always keeping an eye on the grid, if you were to ask different employees, what would be the worst case scenario, you might get some different answers, just depending on, their area of expertise and some of the things that they've seen before. So the best I can say is, we do prepare rigorously for different circumstances, but it's a challenge. Are we ready for anything? I hope so.
Perhaps to put a finer point on that, can you tell us sort of in general, like you're prepared for, this kind of mishap and this one, if all five happened at the same
If you
time?
add the bats into that, bats and rodents make up 60%, 60% of the world.
Okay, don't know who that is.
And just to make sure I heard you, Stuart. So what happens if more than one thing goes wrong, so to speak?
Well, I mean, there are things that you know and that we can expect that you're very well prepared for, and so I suppose what's sort of the natural limit that you're aiming for? Like, well, at least if there's a fire here and this thing falls down there, and then it's 105 degrees, and then there's a brownout in New Mexico. Well, we've got all that covered, that sort of thing. I'm curious if you have a sense about that, and if not,
I'll just touch on it. I mean, we do talk about and try to prepare for those contingencies where there, again, there's multiple failures. Let's say a generating resource goes, trips offline because of an equipment issue. And at the same time, there's a wildfire. Or perhaps, our system is damaged because of a storm or because of vandalism or sabotage. I mean, we do try to anticipate multiple types of problems and then consider what happens when these different issues occur, maybe at the same time, because it forces us to think about, okay, what resources do we have in place? And if, you play what if a little bit, if we needed to bring in additional resources, maybe procure power from a source that we wouldn't normally, or we'd have to line up additional capacity. If there were storm damage, for example, maybe we would need to seek support from another utility. We consider those possibilities. And again, it gets back to the idea that we understand during the summer, that's when people are really dependent on the service we provide. So I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but I hope it does.
Paula, did you have a question?
Yeah, and this will also lead in then to a question that Yvonne Huckleberry put into the chat. So after I ask mine, maybe that would follow nicely. I'm just wondering, because we've been talking a lot about the need for and limited supply of battery backup for power during power outages, or just to make things more usable. Are there ways to make the battery backup systems, or actually the solar rooftop systems, more affordable for more people? And Yvonne was asking, and I'm not sure if she was directing this to TEP or any of the organizations, the whole question of funding possibilities for backup. And then she was wondering if you received funding from the IRA, and is that now threatened? So a couple of questions there. And
I
that's
can jump.
good.
Sorry. I
Yeah.
can jump in. This is Fatima Luna. So yes, we did receive some funding from, or we're awarded some funding from the IRA, specifically to do 3 resilient hubs in partnership with the Primavera Foundation. They are the lead applicants. And yeah, so I do think there is a lot of uncertainty with the new administration whether or not that funding will materialize. So there's always that possibility that it won't. What I can tell you is that as the city, we will continue to focus on the city's mission to serve the residents of Tucson. And yeah, it's just, not great that we would not. I mean, if that funding doesn't get materialized, we would not have the funding. It does take more time, and that's why partnerships like the one that we are working on with TP would be great, because not only are we in the Pacific Northwest National Lab, because not only it would be the first resilient hub with battery storage system for one of our big recreational centers that 5,000 people per month use, but it also will provide a lot of learning lessons since it's going to be very new, innovative. So I would say that, yeah, there is uncertainty with the funding, but also we'll continue to explore other partnerships to build resilience as much as we can, right? the federal funds are great, but as Karina mentioned, it really does take everyone, the business sector, city government, and then communities to build resilience from all levels. What you all are doing at the neighborhood level or even at the community level, it's great. And also as a government, we also need to do our part. And so it does take everyone. And so even though that funding might be uncertain, we do need to think about all the solutions.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Fatima, for adding that. And we really are excited about this Donald Liggins project and hope it'll be the beginning of many. Now, let's see. Before, Jana's got a question, and Jana, I'm happy to ask it because it's in the chat, or if you'd like to ask it yourself. But first, I'd like to ask Mariko, if you're still present to answer.
Okay.
Has the Red Cross considered trying to make their facility something like what's happening at Donald Liggins, or are there sort of security issues around materials that you have there that would really prevent it being a cooling center?
So, making a Red Cross facility a cooling center is not something that I'm aware of that we've considered. As far as real estate and building locations, we're really limited. And for our Tucson operations, there are security concerns that we have because we are a blood center. And that's where we collect, store, and distribute all of our blood supply. So that would be a large security concern to have, a large number of people that we don't know who they are coming into a facility like that. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, you're muted.
Well, thank you, Mariko, for that. Very, very helpful. And we appreciate the fact that you're storing and distributing that blood, which is so important. Jana, shall I ask the question or
I can do it.
Go ahead, please.
So hi, I'm Janice Siegel-Stormont, and I follow what's happening at the Arizona legislature. And there have been some really bad bills this week. This is something from the Sierra Club that I've cut and pasted. This week was Utility Week at the Arizona legislature as committees advanced bills to allow utilities to get out of liability for negligence related to wildfires and to broadly apply for financial mechanisms to reduce costs of debt on power plants without retiring them, and also passed a bill to require utilities have the right of first refusal for construction of renewables, which seems to be a way of blocking solar. So I'm hoping that TP is not involved in this, but can you tell me if they lobbied for these bills?
I do appreciate the question. Truthfully, I would have to ask. We do file comments on bills sometimes. We can't have a presence at the legislature for all of these measures. I simply don't know. Like I said before, I would be happy to find out. I don't have an answer for you right now.
Oh, I'm going to put my name in the chat if anybody would like to get legislative reports and weigh in on bills like this while they're still in committee and say that you don't want them, or if you want them, you can email me at jenna@sustainabletucson.org and get request to speak actions every week on these and a lot of other really bad bills happening at the state legislature.
Thank you, Jana, for the advocacy work, and thank you, Joe, for just how you take everything in and share what you can. It's much appreciated. God, I want to make sure, Rosemary, I thought you might have had another question. No? Okay. Dwayne.
Yeah, Joe, I was very encouraged to hear the way you described the potential for the Donna Liggins project to work. It's been as someone who installs systems with battery storage, mostly in residential settings. It is, the resiliency and the need during an emergency is obviously something that is easy to understand. And then at the same time, the expense involved in these large battery systems and their capacity to serve the grid in normal times is really great. And I'm glad that you seem to be working in that direction of making good use all the time of a resource that also then could serve in emergency capacity when needed. My question related to that is whether this kind of model may be able to be spread once this system shows promise. For example, with all of the TUSD schools that have large solar arrays, and perhaps they could just have kind of a similar arrangement where during an emergency, those facilities could serve the neighbors in the area who may need cooling and so on, and also that they could be an ongoing source for balancing grid demand and such in normal operation times. Does that sound like a potential direction that would follow from the Liggins project?
I mean, it's certainly something that we, that we could explore. The thing I'll say is it would depend on the configuration of the system, and some of the battery systems that we have in place or are working on right now. There's a system south of the airport at our Wilmot facility, and that it's only 30 megawatts, but it's charged, or at least used to be exclusively charged. Megawatts. But one of the things that we're looking to do is to capitalize on the lower price of solar during the day, perhaps even from like California. The idea being that although the battery is grid tied, we could still take advantage of, solar power at a lower price. That's our hope. So point is, there are different, different ways to configure different systems. And so, for any existing system, I guess one of the questions might be, how big is the system? How much energy can it generate? And then how big is the battery? I mean, I don't think, I'm not an engineer, journalism major here, but I don't think it would be as simple as, well, you have one solar system and one battery, and so that system would be enough to charge the battery. I guess there's all those questions about, how big is it? How big's the battery? Maybe it is charged by the solar array, but it's also charged by the grid. There's just, there's a number of different questions that would have to be worked through. But, certainly something, again, for continued discussion.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that. And thank you, Joe, for the answer, and Dwayne for the question. We got a sign from Karina that it's getting towards bedtime. So I'd like to invite each of the speakers to give just a sentence or two or three of a closing remark, whether it's acknowledging something you've been asked or acknowledging one of the other speakers, just so we can have a little closure before we say goodnight. And why don't we start with Karina, since she gave us the sign?
I did wanted to mention something, and I think I kind of like forgot. The collaboration across jurisdictions and also with other local partners. We're learning, right? We're learning. Sorry, my daughter's already here. We're learning. We're like on a learning curve, and something that we started late last summer, was actually providing more of the information that we had available to our community members, like going door by door. And I think that kind of like started towards the end of August, I want to say, when cooling centers were closing, right? Because summer was ending. Hold on, Leah. Give me a minute right now. And so we started this activity pretty late in the summer, but we did start it, collaborating with the Red Cross, with other groups at the university, also other departments in the city. And something that I did wanted to mention is that we were invited last week. So we started with the Heat Summit this year, February 1st, but we already started last week with the Red Cross doing the heat canvassing. So I know one of the questions was if the Red Cross can also have some cooling centers or make them like resilience hubs, but we're all in this together, and there's different ways in which we can all support each other. And I think that we're getting better, right? We're getting better. We're starting. I can say it. This personally, right? I started as a researcher, and in 2020, when I started doing my research, there were like just one cooling center per ward office. Most of the work was done by local organizations. But last year, the city, the county, now we have TP, we have the Red Cross, like we're starting to collaborate a little bit more. We have you guys are doing an amazing work at the neighborhood and the community level. And I feel like we all need to be able to collaborate with each other so that we can actually serve our community better, and to make sure that all those lessons learned are will guide us on our upcoming years. So I just wanted to say that we already started reaching out to our community members, providing some resources about heat, and we're going to continue to do that. And I just got.
Thank you, Karina, for that collaboration. And Joe, would you like to give us just 2 or 3 sentences closing?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for the time. I understand there's concerns on a number of different levels about how we provide service, but we do appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Please explore our website. We have a ton of information there. And one last thing I will call out, very on point for our discussion. We have something called a medical device alert program. It simply means that customers can inform us if they rely on medical equipment, and we encourage them to let us know about that, because in the event of an outage, it helps us to prioritize restoration. So I will drop a link to that information page in the chat, and as mentioned, if anyone has any follow-up questions offline, let me know.
Joe, and I wanted to add something real quick, because I know a lot of people register, but I think you have to register or make sure that you're on the list every 2 or 3 years. A lot of people don't do that. So make sure that if you're registered, make sure to check every 2 years so that TP has all your information.
That's right. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate that.
Good.
Joe, could you put your email in the chat?
I dropped it in. It's jbarrios@tep.com, and then I also dropped in the link to the medical device alert page.
Great.
And thank you, Joe, by the way, because we know that TEP is working very hard, that we should never have to deal with everything we're preparing for, which would be extreme heat and power outage. We appreciate that effort. And let's see, Mariko, would you like to give us your closing words?
Thank you for this opportunity. As the Red Cross is working with all of our partners, we love the work that's being done at the neighborhood association level. That's where we really want to be. We want to continue working with the city and the county and organizations like TEP for cooling centers and creating standardization amongst them as we're working on this heat preparedness and getting ready for the summer. That is something that we are all engaged in. And just to reaffirm that the Red Cross is here to shelter, house, and feed any of those that are displaced, whether that's for heat or any other reason. So thank you all.
Thank you, Enrico. And I'd like to acknowledge representatives of neighborhood associations or neighborhood groups that are doing the work that Karina, Fatima, and others have acknowledged. Jana is with the Pinecrest neighborhood, sort of near Swan and Speedway, and they're doing some of their barn working. And let's see, Rosemary's with Jefferson Park. She's on the board as Jana is on her neighborhood board. And then Susan Wenberg is working with Garden District, and they're going to be getting a whole quadrant covered or reached out to. And I'm with Sustainable Tucson, but also with the Sam Hughes Neighborhood Association, which is where this project began. And let's see, and Catherine Volpe is a leader in the Broadmoor Broadway Village Neighborhood Association, which has done just a incredible work. Virtually every block in their neighborhood has been covered with Red Cross information plus the barn information that we developed in terms of home prep. So really exciting that so many people are engaged in all these different ways. And as many people have emphasized today, doing together is how we will accomplish this work. And sometimes, as Mariko points out in his trainings, there's something called healthy conflict. We'll have to learn more about that. In other words, people may come to a meeting with different ideas of how we're going to go forward. But if there's a healthy conflict, in other words, there's ways to talk and listen and negotiate, then quite often better solutions came out than even came into the room. So with that in mind, thank you all for being here. Paula, did you have a final comment?
Stuart, the first item in the chat is a link to an organizing doodle for building resilience by building community. It's a project that Sustainable Tucson is trying to organize to help neighborhoods come together and plan a sustainable future and then begin to actually implement it. So if any of you are interested in helping to organize neighborhoods in town, please get that doodle link and join us probably next week.
You should be aware, Trace, that people who came in after you posted that will not see it.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well.
Even if you came in late, you can't go back to the very beginning?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't go back to before one entered the meeting.
Okay.
Well, here it is then.
And while he's doing that, I forgot also Jan is with the Dietz Neighborhood Association. She too is involved in the barn efforts. So we've got quite a team here of barn activists. So if you'd like to stick around and Trace will get that piece into there it is. Looks like it just got in.
Yeah, I think you have to, it's kind of weird that you have to select to send it to everyone. There's you send it.
I can't find everyone.
No, I know but just when you're gonna send it on the chat, just make sure it says meeting group chat.
That's what I can't do.
Okay, well, Karina put it in, so there it is.
Okay.
Right there.
And thanks again to Rico and Joe and Karina for all your great work and your thoughtful responses to some diverse questions. And we will call this formally adjourned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Night.
Have a good evening.